everybody, it's Dr. Mika Riley here at Movement Headquarters, Movement Rehab and Performance in Seattle, Washington. I'm Dr. Mika Riley, a physical therapist, a strength and conditioning specialist, an ACL rehab specialist, and a three-peat ACLer myself. So I am going to get into the little nitty-gritty details, the ACL deep dive on integrating into non-contact sports. Most of you have something, if you're in this phase already, most of you have something that you, along the ACL journey, you're aiming for. A lot of it is return to soccer, return to basketball, return to skiing, stuff like that. But the biggest thing is, you really need to prepare for some of that stuff. And the only best way to prepare for that is by doing some of it. Of course, not all people should just be going out there and doing stuff on their own without some sort of program. But in order to prepare for your sport, you not only need to be in a gym setting, but you also need to spend some time on the field before we can say, yes, go play that soccer game with your teammates. We really need to prepare you for that instance. So the biggest thing that I want to hone in on is, it is important to maybe integrate some of your sport into your rehab. We obviously go through our withdrawals and not being able to participate in our sport. If you go to practice or watch a game and you really wish that you were in that situation where you could be playing again, this is one of the reasons why it's so important to incorporate your sport into your rehab within certain parameters, of course. Like, you obviously can't go and change direction really fast at high speeds at 3 months post-op. But there are some things, for example, if you're a soccer player, there are ways to incorporate a soccer ball and some of the moves that are safe within your rehab situation. So typically when I start integrating non-contact sports into your rehab routine is usually around the 5 to 7 month mark. Okay. So, the biggest thing during this time is really making sure that we are moving really well, and you're moving with a purpose, and you're moving very confidently. And a lot of that has to deal with loading you up in the gym setting and making sure that your program is solid and preparing for those specific movements where you're like, yeah, I've got this. The other part is getting used to pumping the brakes, right? So if you are a soccer player out there and you're like, well, I'm a striker and if I get a ball and I have to go change direction real quick and cut someone so I can go to the goal, well, guess what? We need to make sure that you are able to, one, handle that situation, but two, decelerate under those conditions too, with somebody coming running at you and a lot of people yelling at you, right? So biggest thing is we got to prepare you for what's to come. And it starts with a predictable way of integrating that into your routine. So ways that we really start with that are by integrating deceleration into your program. Deceleration is absolutely vital. You need to be able to not only push on the gas pedal, like sprints and all of that stuff, but in order to change direction in a contact sport like soccer or basketball or football or even skiing, you have to be able to push the brake, right? So you need to brake well in order for that to happen under conditions where you're maybe moving fast, right? So early single leg decelerations using things like a cone or whatnot are really crucial during this time period in your rehab. And not doing them at all, frankly, is also not preparing you well for your sport. The other thing during this time is rate of force development, making sure that you are able to produce force quickly under very quick situations that can help you during your return or your integration to return to sport. So when we get, the biggest thing is what you're doing in the gym might not seem functional, but at the end of the day, it's really preparing you for that integration to your sport, because you need to push the brake, you need to push on the gas pedal, you need to be able to turn the steering wheel, and the steering wheel is your body. And all of those things are preparing you in the gym that you're doing is going to prepare you for the field. Okay, so I talk about this and making sure that the foundation is absolutely solid. But once you have that solidified foundation, now we need to put it to use by doing integration to non-contact sport. So integration to non-contact training, what does that mean? Well, guess what? It means that you cannot do any contact. You can't have Jill go and push on you like you would on a 1v1 situation. That is not appropriate at this time, okay? But it does mean that, guess what? I'm going to feed you a ball, but it's going to be in a predictable way that we've already talked about and that you expect and anticipate to happen. There's not going to be a lot of unpredictable, chaotic movements during this time, which means like sometimes, for example, in a sports setting, you have coaches yelling at you, you have teammates calling your name, you have parents cheering you on, you've got the ref blowing his whistle, you've got 11 other opponents on the other side that you have to deal with. So there's just a lot of chaos that's happening. That environment is crazy. But after you had this injury and are rehabbing it, you're not ready right off the bat to go to all of that chaotic movement. So we have to make sure that you, one, are really solid in a very predictable manner. And it's by doing this integration within this 5 to 7 month mark, as long as you're passing all the criteria to do that. And you have to be roughly 70 to 80% strength for that to happen. But that's where we need to lay the work for this. We need to lay the foundation, okay? So predictability. Predictability is key during this time because we want to make sure, are you ready to change direction yet? And if you are, guess what? We're going to do some change of direction as well. But I really want to make sure that you are able to accelerate and decelerate with good control. And you're able to be comfortable with taking that change of direction under non-speedful situations and maybe under a little bit of speedful situations, okay? I'm not going to have you go from 0 to 100% speed and then ask you to go change direction quickly. That is a bit too much right now during this phase. And what I would say is, okay, if you're hitting all the strength numbers and everything, I might have you inch up, right? So you're going to do like a 45-degree predictable turn with maybe 50% speed or maybe even at jog pace to get you comfortable, to get your brain used to it, to get your leg used to it. Because there can be a lot of compensatory things during this time happening where you think you're going around a cone and you're doing that, but guess what? You might be offloading the leg or you might be not leaning into it enough. So those are the reasons why we want to make sure that we see you integrate into some sort of sport situation. So then we know what we need to work on and program for you in the gym setting, because we can prepare you for that in the gym setting and then piece it all together on the field. So change of direction. I usually like to make sure that people have at least over 80% strength, quad and hamstring, to really start integrating change of direction in. And that usually definitely will not, no ifs, ands, or buts, won't happen before the 6-month mark, okay? Biggest thing is I don't incorporate rotation until the 6-month mark anyways. It's a typical protocol thing that we use just because of the natural healing of the ACL in general. And we still want to protect that integrity, right? We want things to heal. And then at that point, that ACL will be able to withstand that stuff that you want to throw at it. So the typical progression that I usually like to take with people is once we hit that 6-month mark, and if strength scores are where we need them to be, you have earned the right to unlock change of direction training, which means I take people not only in the gym setting, do some of that stuff, but I want to translate it to their sport. So I meet people up at a field and I say, okay, this is what we're going to do. One, we're already integrating into their sport by getting and meeting them at the field. So that is a win. 2, we do some of this change of direction stuff and pushing the brakes a little bit for you to get you used to that, right? Because I then go from, we go linear, we'll do linear, very predictable, straight running accelerating, braking, all of that stuff, double leg and single leg situations. And then we will move on to a 45 to 90 degree turn with that, or even build into that and then do maybe even 180 degree turn, things like that. But you're definitely not going to go from 0 to 100 speed and then ask you to change direction like you're doing a sprint routine, okay? So that's the way I like to integrate into sports. We won't know what is a problem in the rehab situation, specifically after an ACL injury, if we don't see what it looks like. We learn a lot about the athlete during the integration to non-contact situations, because we need to see, okay, are they not leaning into their cutting well? Are they offloading when it comes to, are they not able to break well on a double leg or a single leg situation? And are they also fearful, right? We already talked about the psychological component to ACL rehab. If we're not addressing all facets of the rehab and we missed the psychological component, well, when they're released, they're not likely to be very confident in their knee and their ability to perform at pre-injury level, okay? So those are things that I would say are really important. A lot of physical therapists out there that are not well informed on how to best approach an ACL rehab situation won't integrate you into your sport. Why? Because one, you're usually on insurance, and insurance doesn't care if you return to sport or not. They just care that you are able to do your daily tasks, which is a very big problem. Number two, they don't have that knowledge. They don't understand how important it is to see what that looks like. If your end goal is return to sport, your rehab routine should look like you're doing just that to some extent, right? You're not going to go right out of the gate and do your typical rondo and things like that on a soccer setting, but you're going to do things that help prepare you to do that, and then so on and so forth. And this is how it starts. It all has to start in a predictable manner, within what you are comfortable with and within the parameters of which your strength numbers and everything are performing, right? So I tell people your rehab definitely is preparing you and preparing the foundation for the field work, and vice versa. The field work gives us more information on how we need to change your gym routine, your rehab program in the gym. So for example, if somebody is not pumping the brakes really well, or pumping the brakes and change of direction really well, then I might, for example, on single leg, have somebody do something that, for example, maybe a landmine push. I'm going to have them do a landmine push to brake and then a rotation with it, something like that, to really help make that feel more solid for somebody, more fluid for somebody, and more confident, most importantly. And then when we go to the field and look at it, it's with practice and such, it should look better and feel more fluid. Okay, so nobody ever should have to take integration to sport in their own hands. It should be the responsibility of collaboration with the provider, your strength and conditioning specialists, or if they're both of them, great. And maybe even your coach if there is a coach involved. Okay. During this time, there are certainly some things that I allow my players to do to help integrate them into the team setting as well. But these expectations and boundaries, if you will, need to be very clear to everybody involved, the athlete, the parent, the coach, the trainer, whomever. They all need to be on the same page and have a solid understanding. Nobody should be doing any really high speed change of direction things at this point in time, but inching their way into that. So it might be that, guess what, maybe the athlete can start integrating by doing just the warm-up with their team, or maybe even some simple short passes during this time. Things that are very predictable is going to be key during this time. Nothing too chaotic, nothing you should be kind of reacting towards yet, but everything needs to be very predictable, okay? So theme of it is predictability, but making sure that you are getting onto the field or whatever sport you're involved in, into the scene of your sport at some point. And it all starts with non-contact, no defenders, no people coming and pushing and shoving you right at this point in time. It's all about your body getting used to what it's supposed to do in that scenario and in a controlled manner. The likelihood that something serious like a re-rupture during this time is very, 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 very unlikely. So I want to assure you that it is perfectly safe to do this during this time. And the likelihood of a re-rupture during this situation is very low because the stress that we're placing it under is pretty low because we're not doing anything very, very quick, right? We're just doing things like, it's like taking a jog for the first time. We got to see how it feels. We got to get used to how weird it feels, things like that, okay? But it's all for the benefit of making sure that you feel confident that in your ability to return to the field. Your return to the field should not be your first game back after your ACL journey. It should be at some point between the 5 and 7 month mark, likely the 6 month mark during your rehab process. So you should be able to put on your cleats, whatever it might be, and get used to that at that point in time. So if that's not happening, find a provider that's going to make that happen for you to make sure that you can do some sort of on-field rehab with them and with certain parameters and have a solid understanding of what you can and cannot do and how you can integrate that into your rehab program. I will say as a caveat, insurance, if you go through your insurance usually does not cover this. They don't care that you return to sport, okay? So you might have to invest in a provider that can do this for you, that can make sure that you are going to get from point A to point B successfully, confidently, and perform at higher than your pre-injury levels. Okay, so if you have any questions regarding non-contact integration or want a little bit more information, chat with us and see what we can do to help you. Or better yet, if you just are lost in this whole entire process and don't know how the heck to manage any of this, or you don't have a provider that is giving you what you need and deserve, reach out to us for a consult by clicking on the sidebar link where it says "Want to Consult," and we are happy to work with you as we worked with many people nationally and globally, virtually or in person, regarding the ACL rehab process. So, all right, let us know if you have any questions and reach out.